Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling. The Butterfly That Stamped. Part 2. Balkis bent her beautiful head down and whispered, "Little sister, do you believe what your husband has just said? Next time he begins to boast, take him at his word, ask him to stamp, and see what will happen. We know what menfolk are like, don't we? He will be very much ashamed." Away flew the butterfly's wife to her husband, and in 5 minutes they were quarrelling worse than ever. "Remember," said the butterfly, "remember what I can do if I stamp my foot." "I don't believe you one little bit," said the butterfly's wife. "I should very much like to see it done. Suppose you stamp now." "I promised Sulaiman bin Daoud that I wouldn't," said the butterfly, "and I don't want to break my promise." "It wouldn't matter if you did," said his wife. "You can't bend a blade of grass with your stamping. I dare you to do it," she said. "Stamp, stamp, stamp." Sulaiman bin Daoud, sitting under the camphor tree, heard every word of this, and he laughed as he had never laughed in his life before. He forgot all about his queens, he forgot all about the animal that came out of the sea, he forgot about showing off. He just laughed with joy, and Balkis, on the other side of the tree, smiled because her own true love was so joyful. Presently the butterfly, very hot and puffy, came whirling back under the shadow of the camphor tree, and said to Sulaiman, "She wants me to stamp. She wants to see what will happen. Oh, Sulaiman bin Daoud, you know I can't do it, and now she'll never believe a word I say. She'll laugh at me to the end of my days." "No, little brother," said Sulaiman bin Daoud. "She will never laugh at you again." And he turned the ring on his finger, just for the little butterfly's sake, not for the sake of showing off, and lo and behold, 4 jinns came out of the earth. "Slaves," said Sulaiman bin Daoud, "when this gentleman on my finger," that was where the impudent butterfly was sitting, "stamps his left front forefoot, you may make my palace and these gardens disappear in a clap of thunder. When he stamps again, you will bring them back, carefully. Now, little brother," he said, "go to your wife and stamp all you've a mind to." Away flew the butterfly to his wife, who was crying, "I dare you to do it! I dare you to do it! I dare you to do it! Stamp, stamp now, stamp!" Balkis saw the 4 vast jinns stoop down to the 4 corners of the gardens with the palace in the middle, and she clapped her hands softly and said, "At last Sulaiman bin Daoud will do for the sake of a butterfly what he ought to have done long ago for his own sake, and the quarrelsome queens will be frightened." Then the butterfly stamped. The jinns jerked the palace and the gardens 1,000 miles into the air. There was a most awful clap of thunder, and everything grew inky black. The butterfly's wife fluttered about in the dark, crying, "Oh, I'll be good. I'm so sorry I spoke. Only bring the gardens back, my darling husband, and I'll never contradict again." The butterfly was nearly as frightened as his wife, and Sulaiman bin Daoud laughed so much that it was several minutes before he found breath enough to whisper to the butterfly, "Stamp again, little brother. Give me back my palace, most great magician." "Yes, give him back his palace," said the butterfly's wife, still flying around in the dark like a moth. "Give him back his palace, and don't let's have any more horrid magic." "Well, well, my dear," said the butterfly as bravely as he could, "you see what your nagging has led to. Of course it doesn't make any difference to me. I'm used to this kind of thing, but as a favour to you and to Sulaiman bin Daoud, I don't mind putting things right." So he stamped once more. And that instant the jinns let down the palace and the gardens without even a bump. The sun shone upon the dark green orange leaves, the fountains played among the pink Egyptian lilies, the birds went on singing, and the butterfly's wife lay on her side under the camphor tree, waggling her wings and panting, "Oh, I'll be good, I'll be good." Sulaiman bin Daoud could hardly speak for laughing. He leaned back all weak and hiccupy, and shook his finger at the butterfly and said, "Oh, great wizard, what is the sense of returning to me my palace if at the same time you slay me with mirth?" Then came a terrible noise, for all the 999 queens ran out of the palace shrieking and shouting and calling for their babies. They hurried down the great marble steps below the fountain, 100 abreast, and the most wise Balkis went stately forward to meet them and said, "What is your trouble, O queens?" They stood on the marble steps, 100 abreast, and shouted, "What is our trouble? We were living peacefully in our golden palace, as is our custom, when upon a sudden the palace disappeared, and we were left sitting in a thick and noisome darkness. And it thundered, and jinns and afrits moved about in the darkness. That is our trouble, O head queen, and we are most extremely troubled on account of that trouble, for it was troublesome trouble, unlike any trouble we have known. Then Balkis, the most beautiful queen, Sulayman bin Dawood's very best beloved, queen that was of Sheba and Sable, and the rivers of the gold of the south, from the desert of Zin to the towers of Zimbabwe, Balkis, almost as wise as the most wise Sulayman bin Dawood himself, said, "It is nothing, O queens. A butterfly has made complaint against his wife because she quarrelled with him, and it has pleased our lord Sulayman bin Dawood to teach her a lesson in low speaking and humbleness, for that is counted a virtue among the wives of butterflies." Then up spoke an Egyptian queen, the daughter of a pharaoh, and she said, "Our palace cannot be plucked up by the roots like a leek for the sake of a little insect. No, Sulayman bin Dawood must be dead, and what we heard and saw was the earth thundering and darkening at the news." Then Balkis beckoned the bold queen without looking at her, and said to her and to the others, "Come and see." They came down the marble steps, 100 abreast, and beneath his camphor tree, still weak with laughing, they saw the most wise King Sulayman bin Dawood, rocking back and forth with a butterfly on either hand, and they heard him say, "O wife of my brother in the air, remember after this, to please your husband in all things, lest he be provoked to stamp his foot yet again, for he has said that he is used to this magic, and he is most eminently a great magician, one who steals away the very palace of Sulayman bin Dawood himself. Go in peace, little folk." And he kissed them on the wings, and they flew away. Then all the queens, except Balkis, the most beautiful and splendid Balkis, who stood apart smiling, fell flat on their faces. For they said, "If these things are done when a butterfly is displeased with his wife, what shall be done to us who have vexed our king with our loud speaking and open quarrelling through many days?" Then they put their veils over their heads, and they put their hands over their mouths, and they tiptoed back to the palace, most mousy quiet. Then Balkis, the most beautiful and excellent Balkis, went forward through the red lilies into the shade of the camphor tree, and laid her hand upon Sulayman bin Dawood's shoulder, and said, "O my lord and treasure of my soul, rejoice, for we have taught the queens of Egypt and Ethiopia and Abyssinia and Persia and India and China with a great and memorable teaching." And Sulayman bin Dawood, still looking after the butterflies where they played in the sunlight, said, "O my lady and jewel of my felicity, when did this happen? For I have been jesting with the butterfly ever since I came into the garden." And he told Balkis what he had done. Balkis, the tender and most lovely Balkis, said, "O my lord and regent of my existence, I hid behind the camphor tree and saw it all. It was I who told the butterfly's wife to ask the butterfly to stamp, because I hoped that for the sake of the jest my lord would make some great magic, and the queens would see it and be frightened." And she told him what the queens had said and seen and thought. Then Sulayman bin Dawood rose up from his seat under the camphor tree, and stretched his arms and rejoiced, and said, "O my lady and sweetener of my days, I know that if I made a magic against my queens for the sake of pride or anger, as I made that feast for all the animals, I should certainly have been put to shame. But by means of your wisdom I made the magic for the sake of a jest, and for the sake of a little butterfly. And behold, it has also delivered me from the vexations of my vexatious wives. Tell me therefore, O my lady and heart of my heart, how did you come to be so wise?" And Balkis the queen, beautiful and tall, looked up into Sulayman bin Dawood's eyes, and put her head on one side, just like the butterfly, and said, "First, O my lord, because I loved you, and secondly, O my lord, because I know what women folk are." They went up to the palace and lived happily ever afterwards. But wasn't it clever of Balkis? There was never a queen like Balkis from here to the wide world's end, but Balkis talked to a butterfly as you would talk to a friend. There was never a king like Solomon, not since the world began, but Solomon talked to a butterfly as a man would talk to a man. She was the queen of Sabea, and he was Asia's lord, but they both of them talked to the butterflies when they took their walks abroad.